10 the podcast, 10 minutes every 10 days. My name is John Wilkerson, and for the third time now, I have Rick Lee James with me. Rick, welcome again.
Thank you. And this time, you're at my house.
Yeah, that's a big. It's the first in-person interview for 10 the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd ask you what you had for breakfast, but we haven't had breakfast yet.
We had coffee.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about your new video out for More Than the Watchman. It's really I guess you could call it an anthem for refugees. Would you call it that, or?
Well, it's kind of turned into that. I just did a radio show this past week, and we talked about it. And when I originally wrote it, it was for an album on the Psalms that I did, because it comes from Psalm 130. And at the time, I wrote it as a repentance song, which I think Psalm 130 does a good job of. Out of the depths, Lord, hear my cry. And but as I had more friendships with people who are actually on the ground working with refugees and outside the country, people through Nazarene Compassionate Ministries, my heart started leaning towards that way and hearing the song that way, in a different way, especially the opening line of the psalm and the opening line of the song itself, with that out of the depths, Lord, hear my cry, because these people who have been displaced through violence and war, it is such a desperation. Their whole life is in desperation, really. It's millions of them. And so I started wondering if I could use some of the footage that they shot whenever they were on the ground working in places like Croatia, where a lot of them were coming through. And it turned into this video, which sort of is going to, I think, be known for, as the anthem for the refugees at this point, because I feel like we tell their story as well as we can, using the medium of music mixed with video from the refugees themselves, seeing a lot of faces, and especially faces of children and families and just people who have been displaced. And so I'm really proud of how it turned out, and my hope is that it'll, if nothing else, raise awareness and put a face on what we often just use words to talk about and say, oh, those refugees or those people. But I wanted to humanize it, and if we could. So if I'm hopeful that that's what the video is doing. It's only been out about 2 days. I think we're close to 6,000 views on it already, and people have been sharing it, and hopefully there will be momentum building, from that. So. Yeah,
I think this might almost become as popular as your cover of a Devil Went Down to Georgia.
Yeah. Yeah. The thousands of views that thing has gotten is crazy, but yeah, you're right.
Well, we were talking about kind of this whole refugee crisis, and how it's interesting that 20 years ago we were talking about the 1040 window, and how we needed to get the gospel to that area of the world because it was the most unreached people groups were in that area. And for those of you who don't know what the 1040 window is, it's the area between the 10th and the 40th latitude of the world. And there's a lot of there are a lot of groups there that are unreached. But now God has orchestrated a way for us to reach these people groups. And when it seems like when we have to put our lives on the line as Christians by allowing people to come to our country, all of a sudden we don't want to reach that people group anymore.
Yeah. We've been incredibly inhospitable to people in need, and I don't think the Lord is smiling on us for that in any way. And so it's interesting that you say that. We've always talked about we've got to go reach these people for the gospel, and it seems like we've always been more apt to, well, let's just send missionaries, But when it comes to the chance for them to come here and we could actually maybe live out the gospel, we're not doing such a good job. And I'll tell you what I'm getting. I've never had this on any of my music videos before. It's always been positive, good comments and stuff. I'm getting quite a bit of pushback from people. Keep them out. Don't let them in our country. From people that are not even I don't even know if they're watching the video in its entirety, because the video is just full of children's faces. You know, I mean, it's kids, it's little kids. And I had one guy write yesterday. It was unbelievable. I'll sum up what he said. I won't tell you who said it. It was just a Facebook person, but basically accused the refugees. 11 million of them, by the way. It's not like just one family down the street. If you can imagine, 11 million people that don't have homes because of violence and war and persecution, oftentimes because they're Christians. And he said they did it to themselves so that they could come into our country and kill us.
Yeah.
And like, yes, that's what they did. They blew up their own house and killed their own family members for the sole purpose of living in a refugee camp with nowhere to go so that they could possibly come to another country and kill people. Yes, that's what refugees are doing. Yeah. These little children.
And you mentioned that a lot of these people are Christians. And I think that's what, and I think, you know, we recently had the incident in Charlottesville. Mm-hmm. And I think what this is we don't want brown Christians in our country.
Right.
And I don't think many people would admit to that. Mm-hmm. But I think that's part of it. I think part of it is fear. What if what if there's another terrorist event that happened? And I, at least with that, I can understand that a little bit more, and I can I can empathize with that.
I'm trying to be empathetic as I can to people in the U.S., but at this point, I get a little bit angry too, because we are not called to be people of fear. Yeah. We are called to be people who are servants, who lay down our lives for others. Jesus never mentions a defensive posture. Jesus always talks about open arms, and all these what ifs that we have. We subscribe to the dumb plot of Batman v Superman. Literally, it struck me yesterday. Where there's this. I mean, it's a terrible line. If there's even a 1% chance that he's a threat, then we have to take it as an absolute certainty. You know,
right?
And the whole idea of that's kind of the way that the narrative has been for many people. Like, if there's even a grain of sand that they could possibly even, and the fact is, who the violent people are in this country is the Americans. and there's not, I don't believe to this day there's one case of a refugee ever causing harm to anyone.
There isn't.
And there's lots of cases of us causing them harm. So on some level, I almost wonder, like, well, should they come in here? Because I'm almost scared for them coming in here. People are fleeing our country for the first time that I've ever heard about. And it's inhospitable. It's ungodly. And so I'm very concerned about that. But I wanted to use the video as a way actually to point people to ways where they can just find out more about the crisis. Mm-hmm. So like on my website at rickleejames.com, if you go through there to watch it, there's actually it's right on the main page. You can click it and it'll just take you to a place where you can find out more about refugees and the facts on the situation, because there's a lot of half-truths and just complete outright lies that are being told about refugees. And the word refuge is key, because they are people who are seeking refuge. They are actually the victims. So I liken it, to this, and I know we're running out of time, but imagine if somebody if somebody came into your neighborhood, tanks, guns, whatever, and drove everybody in your neighborhood out, destroyed your home, took away your way of making income, and you had to leave your state. A lot of them have to leave their entire country, but some of them just leave like the state they're in, the city, whatever. And then you're told to leave, and then when you get there, everybody is pointing at you as the one that did it, and they look at you suspiciously. Now you have a family of, there's 7 total in your family, is that right?
7 kids, yeah.
7 kids plus you and your wife. So you can imagine if your family all of a sudden was out on the street because somebody came in, ransacked your home, in many cases maybe killed a couple of your family members, possibly even raped family members, set your home on fire, pushed you out, and then when you got to a place of refuge on foot, wherever it was that you had to get to, you were then treated like a terrorist.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we have been doing.
And to think that we've been doing it to our Christian brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
It's just that, I mean, that makes it even worse. You know,
Yeah.
Paul said that we are supposed to be especially welcoming to our brothers and sisters in Christ.
So again, multiply that by not just your family or your neighborhood, multiply it by 11 million people that this has happened to, and you have a world crisis.
It is a world crisis, and it's astounding to me how much the church misses these opportunities to step up and share the love of Christ.
Yeah.
And really, we could have a wave of revival and a wave of, new people coming to the Lord that this country hasn't seen before. But we're walking in fear, or we're walking out of hatred.
Yeah.
And it is just something that...
Well, and I'll just kind of maybe close it out this way with my thoughts on the matter. Let's say that somebody came in and was dangerous, and I'm almost at the point in my life where I've surrendered to Christ. We are Christians. If they take my life, they don't take anything that I can't freely give. And first of all, it's not going to happen, and we're much more likely to be end up at in one of our own cities, be by one of our own people, because if you want to look at who really the most violent people are in the world, it's males. So by the same logic we're using to say refugees, which there's zero evidence that there's ever been anything that's happened with refugees in that vein, there's plenty of evidence that males do it. So you and I should actually be the ones banned from the country and pushed out by that logic.
I don't know. You look pretty scary. You look like you're about to do something there, Rick.
Yeah, it's just this early morning. No. So anyway, I guess I'm more than anything with this video, I'm just hoping people will look into it a little deeper and see. This video was filmed from friends of mine who actually have been there. And these are actual real people. They can tell you their stories. They can talk about the way that this one man in particular, he's a young man, probably age of your kids, and he said the whole time they tried to interview him and talk to him, he just trembled because he doesn't know where his family is. They're probably dead. He's been trying to find a place. He's stuck in a train station, and he said that he just is in a constant state of trembling. And he said the families that are there, I mean, my friends have told me that what they have is a tent, that they're given, but they will welcome you into their tents like you are the most honored guest in the world and give you from the little that they have. And you can't say this universally about anybody of any one group. I mean, everybody's got a jerk, I'm sure, somewhere in there. But that doesn't change the fact that we are Jesus people and we are fearless people. And if you allow fear to reign your life, you are not serving Jesus.
We're called to put our lives on the line for the gospel. And unfortunately, for the format of this podcast, I mean, we could keep going on this. We certainly could. But once again, the video is going to be at Struggling for Purpose, as well as links to Nazarene Compassionate Ministries.
I should also say, you don't have to just go through Nazarene Compassionate Ministries. There's several places that are working with refugees. This is just one that's my denomination, and they're doing a good work, and I have close friends that are working. So I would encourage anyone to go wherever you need to get your information, but make sure it's factual information.
Right. And if you're, find a way, talk to the leaders in your church and say, how can we support refugees? Because it is a world problem. It's not going away. So thanks once again, Rick.
My pleasure.
Thank you for hosting us as we travel through. It's been wonderful to be here, and I can't wait to talk to you again. See what the results of this are. Check out RickLeeJames.com. Check out his stuff there, and It's 10 the podcast, 10 minutes every 10 days. My name is John Wilkerson. Thanks for sticking me in your ears.